Welcome to today's webinar, Beyond Dots on the Map, Real-Time Data for Year-Round Public Works Operations, part of Connect Me Asset Mapping Events 2026 Smart Compliance in the Right-of-Way series. I'm Pete Costello, a professional in residence in analytics at Fairfield University's Dolan School of Business. I'll be moderating the event and hosting the Q&A later in the presentation. Before we get started, we'd like to run a quick poll of the audience to find out where you are from and what industries and sectors you work in. The poll will pop up on your screen. I think it's there now. So please be sure to fill it in and hit submit. We'd like to have an interactive event today. So please enter your questions into the Q&A space. It's located at the bottom bar on your screen. There's no need to raise your hand. Just post all questions in the Q&A space. Our presenters will respond to all questions at the end of all the presentations in a panel discussion. Also, please be sure to participate in any audience polls as they pop up. For information about the speakers and for this event's agenda, check out the Resources tab at the bottom of your screen. We have also shared some useful links there in that resources section, which you can click to access at any time. This session is being recorded and will be available for download on demand after the event. You will receive an email notifying you when the recording is available. We'd like to thank our webinar series sponsors, Carasoft and Samsara, for making this educational opportunity available for you. Today's featured speakers are myself and Gustavo Castro, Solution Engineer at Esri, Yatin Matre, Senior Sales Engineer at Samsara. Here's an overview of today's session. As you all know, in the public sector, there is truly no off-season. As winter snow removal gives way to street sweeping, leaf collection, lawn mowing, park operations, and ongoing infrastructure maintenance and repair, agencies need real-time operational awareness that evolves with every seasonal transition. Public works leaders demand visibility, but the bigger challenge is maintaining transparency and coordination year-round without reinventing workflows for each shift in equipment and priorities. Too often, agencies find themselves in a data lag where public works operations and GIS offices speak different languages using siloed data, disconnected systems, and often manual reporting. When a water main breaks or a storm hits, you all can't afford to wait for delayed communication or static reports. Today, we'll explore how integrating real-time fleet and asset telematics into ArcGIS creates a living digital twin, a unified real-time view of your operations, and how this convergence moves beyond static information to create a dynamic command center. It enables faster response times, automated citizen transparency, and streamlined workflows across departments, accelerating year-round operations without rebuilding systems each season. And now, so just before we get started, with today's presentation, let's take a look at the poll results. So it looks like most of you folks are here from local government, about 60%, 20% from industry, and 12% from state government, and then some other representatives. And most of our folks are from the United States, with a few folks sprinkled from around the world. As far as the sectors, most are in public works and utilities, about 40%, 25% in transportation. And for size of the municipalities, 40% are over 100,000, and then the rest are evenly spread between ranges under 25,000, 25 to 50, and 50 to 100,000. Now, let's get started so we have as much time as possible later for the Q&A.
Hello, everyone. My My name is Gustavo Castro. I'm a solution engineer with Esri here in our Minneapolis office. Just 1 second while I share the slides here. Yep, I'm a solution engineer here in the Minneapolis office. I'm part of our local government team. I have been with Esri for about 10 years now on this team, and I work with the larger cities and counties here in the upper Midwest. Today, I'm here to talk to you about real-time GIS and how a product that we have called ArcGIS Velocity can work with Samsara, who will be talking here after me, to help you monitor, streamline your real-time GIS operations. And don't worry if you're new to Esri, real-time GIS, you're going to kind of start from the beginning here. So this is a big webinar, right? So some people here might be not familiar with Esri. We are the global leader in GIS. We were founded in 1969, and we work with over 350,000 organizations. A lot of those are here in the US. About 20,000 cities work with Esri, and we work with all 50 states. We are a private owned company, and we invest a lot of our revenue on research and development to make sure that our users, they have the latest in terms of GIS capabilities, tools, and applications. And we built what's called ArcGIS. So Esri is the company, ArcGIS is the suite of products, and it's the most powerful mapping and spatial analytics software out there. It allows you to, manage your data, analyze, visualize, share, collaborate with others. And so it's designed for everyone in the organization, promotes that collaboration through those shared maps, apps, dashboards, and reports and things like that. And ArcGIS is an enterprise technology platform, so it has core capabilities that you can use to build your own systems. And these systems, they are enterprise systems. What that means that they're scalable, they're reliable, they can talk to other systems, they're secure. And the way that you gain access to those systems as users, right? You have the technical people setting up the systems and you have the users, is through what we call user types. So the user types, depending on your role, you get access and you can do certain things in the system, right? And it's a role-based. We have two main ways to do this. One is a SaaS using ArcGIS Online. The other one is called ArcGIS Enterprise. It's something that you deploy and manage yourself. They can do similar things. It's more about your governance, IT preferences, and where you want to have that system running. And then we have something called ArcGIS Solutions that are you can see this as like those systems, but instead of you creating them, Esri has taken the time to create these solutions, and we also maintain, update, and make sure that new technology gets incorporated into them. So these are ready to use. They're industry-focused maps, apps, tools, data models that allows in specific industries to have an end-to-end workflow using ArcGIS. It helps you quickly deploy, right? Avoiding you to kind of start from scratch every time. And they are based on common business needs. And that's why Esri, working with all those organizations that I mentioned at the beginning, we're able to identify some key workflows and those they get added to these solutions. So that's kind of the main difference between the systems that you can configure on your own and the solutions that is kind of an Esri maintained and developed product. And ArcGIS, the solutions that I just mentioned, the systems that you can build, they don't have to be siloed. They can talk to other systems. I mentioned Samsara is going to talk here after I'm done. And, there are a lot of other partners. We have several different partners that supports different industries, different workflows. And the integration here can be getting data out of GIS and into the systems. For this webinar here today, it's more receiving data from Samsara. They're reporting the location of the vehicles and things like that. You can bring that into GIS. In some cases, it might be both. You might be pushing data out and bringing data into the GIS system. So I think that's all I need to talk about, who we are as a company, what we build, and then now let's switch to the real-time piece of the presentation. And this is not a new topic for us, right? I think it's just that we have more and more organizations interested in this topic because there is a growing number of sensors out there. The sensors are becoming cheaper. They're becoming more connected. They can report data faster. They can report more data back to you. So there's a number of reasons why, real-time GIS is a very common topic now. And this is great, right? Having all this information, but how you extract, insight from that data, that's kind of the key component, and how can make your organizations, safer, more efficient, and things like that. So in order to work with this real-time data, you need a real-time engine capable of processing and giving you tools to visualize, analyze, right? The things that you can see on the slide here. So in ArcGIS, that's called ArcGIS Velocity. And that's the one tool that allows you to ingest the data from the other systems, again, like Samsara today. It allows you to visualize, allows you to configure some real-time analytics and also big data analytics that can work with all the historical data that you have. It gives you tools to manage the data, and also, as the data is coming in and you need to take some action, allows you to set up alerting so that, you can send email notification, text messages, trigger some action on a different system. So it's that real-time engine that allows you to have the real-time GIS piece inside the ArcGIS platform. And when we talk about the solutions, again, those systems that are created and maintained by Esri, there are three main ones for, I saw the poll in the beginning here, a lot of people are state and local government. So these are the three main ones for local government. And they are very similar, as I'm going to show one of them in a demo here later. They kind of are developed for the same reasons to improve your visibility into your operations, to allow you to quickly see what's happening out in the field. But they are a little bit different in the way that, some of them work with your road center lines. The mowing one here works more with your mowing area. So the data requirements are slightly different, but they all do similar things. And they share a common pattern so that depending on the season, you can switch, right? So it's winter. We are using the winter weather operations. Now we're kind of transitioning to spring and summer. We can switch this to the street sweeping and the mowing without having to kind of rebuild everything, right? So these are the main steps to get the systems up and running. First, you have to load your data after you deploy the solution, right? The solution will create all the maps, apps, the dashboards and everything that you need, the real-time analytics, big data analytics, but you have to bring your data and load it into the solution. And the main requirements for both the street sweeping and the winter weather is your street center line, any type of boundaries that you want to have to summarize the data. And those, we have a tool that allows you to quickly import that into the solution. Then you want to connect to your AVL. Again, it could be Samsara. That's what we're talking about here today. But if you don't have any, if you're a small city and you don't have any AVL on your vehicles, ArcGIS has a tool that can help with that too. The difference is that the AVLs, they're kind of automated, right? You're receiving the data. The GIS tool here, you might have to initiate things manually. And then after that, you can use the big data and real-time analytics that comes with the solution. So it's running the back end. You don't have to set up yourself, but it's there and it's running as soon as you bring that feed. And then you can use the apps to interact with the different components. So this is kind of overview of the real-time solutions. Now getting a little bit deeper on the street sweeping that I'm going to be showing here today. It was developed for improving, right, and streamlining the operations. There's also a public component if you want to have a public site that kind of talks about, the sweeping or the plowing program, have maybe a map there showing some near real-time update of what's being done, especially on the plowing, right? That's very important so that people can make decisions on when they're going to leave the house and things like that. But again, they are very similar in what they do here. The difference is some of the data requirements. So you can kind of see, I mentioned some of these things already, right? The piece here at the bottom is that public site that I can show in a minute too. And we discussed kind of ArcGIS, as this collaborative environment where you have different maps and apps that can be used by different types of users. And you can see the street sweeping, comes with a number of different applications. And in the demo here today, I'll be playing several different roles, right? But in your organization, not a lot of people would interact with all these apps. Maybe, the person that's setting up and managing would have access to everything. But then after that, it's more, do you need to view the data or edit the data? Do you need to access as an internal use, or do you just need to access the public site as an external use to submit a request, for example? Maybe your street hasn't been plowed, or the sweeper is late and you want to report something. You can do that through the public site solution, the website. And also, do you need to manage this, or are you in the field doing the work? So with that said, let's take a quick look at the solution here. This is the kind of dashboard or the initial page that you see when you deploy, configure, and come to the solution. So you can see there are some key metrics here, right? All the sweepers that we have, how much work we're scheduled to do today, our progress so far, and then these are the requests that I mentioned, the public or maybe internal staff as they are doing the work, they can create this request so that some follow-up happens after that. So if I need to manage my sweepers, I'll go here, and there are some hyperlinks, and you can see there are hyperlinks for the other ones too. And then I have the same options on the top with an additional one to look at the historical data. So let's start with the sweepers. This is a simple page here or application that allows you to kind of look at the data that you have, and depending on how many vehicles you have, some of the filters and additional things might be very handy. In this case, it's a demo site, so there's only a few vehicles, not something that I'll be using a lot. But then I can also add new vehicles. So when I click here, I get a form and I can add a new one. So at first you do a batching port, right? But then as you maybe purchase new vehicles or vehicles get retired, you can come here and make those changes. So you can either add a new one, or if you click on these buttons here, you can edit information about existing ones. So it's going to load the same form, but now with all the information already load up here for that vehicle. And then in addition of doing those two things, I can see where they are in the map, right? And I can see the table here. And then after I do this, I can look at my schedule, work for the day. If I zoom out a little bit here, you're going to see this is a larger area, right? And I was kind of zoomed in on the area that was scheduled for this day. Let's move back to today. So you can kind of quickly see, and this application can be used by maybe someone that's in the office getting calls or something, and people are asking, right, when is my street gonna be, swept? And you can type an address here, and you can zoom into the area. You can click on the road segment, and this is showing the high level overview of what we have for that day, the side of the roads and how much we have done. But there's another tab here that allows me to look at that. For that selection that I made, you can see that the next one is on the May 1st, right? That's when it's next schedule. So I can, give that information to someone that's asking about it. Then I have some additional filters. Again, if you want to look at specific districts that I have loaded up to the solution. But now that we saw these two, right, maybe we're during a day where the sweepers are out there performing some work. And again, all this works similarly if you're using the winter weather one. It's just that you're tracking different metrics. Instead of water use, it's salt use, right? And things like that. But when you move to this operational piece, so this is the real-time component, you have a number of filters here that you can use. So if I want to look at specific road segment, I can click here and select that. If I want to look at specific sweeper routes, I can click here. Specific vehicles, I can select them. And then here I have a list of the vehicles that I have right now, and a lot of indicators and metrics here that I'm keeping track, right? So I can look at my progress today. So we have only done 3%. This is the total. Here's how much we have done. Or I can look at the overall performance too. So, this is a little bit different because this one is just for today. The other one is more kind of a statistic, right? And I can look at the requests here too. And I can look by type. I can make this bigger so that I can see the chart and I can see, we have a lot of potholes being reported today or in my request database, right? And I can use some of the filters to kind of want to look at specific dates too, but maybe you just want to see how many requests you have and what the status of the requests. So that's the operations piece. And then I have the history. This again, it's your historical data. So you have a number of filters here too. You have additional ones because now the data is a little bit different, right? You might want to look at specific time intervals and things like that. Then I can look at the historical information in this track history here. So if I reset this, you can see it's going to tell me that a sweeper filter is required. So when I select something here, and in this case, I don't have anything for that specific vehicle. Again, it's a demo site, but as you select things, you can see the dashboard dynamically changes. And then if I select one of those and I look at the service, I get a table with all the, historical information. This can be very handy, if someone damages the property or someone calls and say, hey, you guys haven't been here today, you can kind of check the historical information here. If I zoom out too, there are also some, things to help you visualize this data on the map, like some different types of aggregations. And you can kind of click on the map and get information interactively from those features too. And quickly going to the request here before I pass this to Samsara to talk about how they can add value to this workflow. This is the manager application to manage all the requests. So you can see I have a number of different requests. I can look at the information here, and then if I need to take any action to change any of the attributes, I have an edit button. I can click there, and now I can maybe change this one from submitted to received, and I can update this. And again, maybe on my public website, that I can show that quickly right now. I can have something here that summarize all the requests that we have, the different status, and they're connected to the same data, right? So as I change the data in the other system, this could change automatically too. I can have, an application that shows the same schedule page that I showed before, it shows here. So if I have an address, I could search for my address and the application would load up here and the user could see, oh, my street is scheduled for, a specific day. And then the sweeping status. So there's another app that you can embed and you can see these are maps that are dynamic, right? They're not just images. So I can click on things and get, information about those features. And then there is a button here to submit a request. So I talked about that, if you want to use that piece and the solution, you can kind of choose what you want to use, right? You don't have to use everything that I showed. Some of the pieces are connected. For example, you're not going to use the request manager without having a way to get those requests. But if you don't want to use this, maybe it's something that's coming from your 311 system and gets automatically loaded. Again, I talked about how, GIS is not a siloed system. It can talk to the other systems that you have. So I have this request form here I can fill out and send it back. But that's kind of quick overview, of Esri, who we are, ArcGIS, the real-time solution focused on street sweeping here as an example. And now I'm going to pass it to Samsara, and they're going to come here and talk a little bit about what they do and how this can work with ArcGIS.
Thank you, Gustavo, for a great session on Esri and ArcGIS in general. Hey, everyone. Nice meeting you all. My name is Yatin Matre, and I'm a sales engineer with the partnerships team at Samsara. You guys just saw all the cool innovations that Esri is bringing to the table. In this session, I will highlight the other side, more so on the data side. How can Samsara data come in as a source of truth into the Esri ecosystem? In terms of agenda, I'll present a couple of slides and then I'll show you some hands-on demo. But at a high level, you can think of, well, whatever you saw on Esri and ArcGIS, you have your GIS tools, you have your dashboards. Samsara is one of the data streams coming in from the operations world. With that, let me present my screen. Great. Again, to do a recap, I'm a sales engineer with the partnerships team and based out of San Francisco Bay Area, been with the company for 5 years, and I've worked very closely with Esri and the partnerships team there. So who is Samsara? We were founded in 2015, a fairly young company, started with bare bones compliance and telematics, and then gradually evolved into AI-based safety. We went public in 2021 into the thick of COVID crises. We invest a lot in R&D, and we have a solid customer feedback loop, or we call it the customer flywheel, where any and all features that we release are essentially powered or propelled by customer requests. And the more we innovate, the more requests customers have, and that sort of keeps the wheel moving. In terms of the market, you guys probably are quite familiar with the sensor / telematics / operations market. There's multiple players. But one thing I would call out about Samsara is we are not a bare bones telematics or a tracking company. We are more so a connected operations company. You can think of, the Salesforce for the world of operations. And our North Star is to be that source of truth for all data related to operations. And all the innovations that we bring to customers are talking to those points. So sensors, eyes on the road, heartbeat of the road, and the infrastructure data that we collect from the cities and municipalities. We collect close to 25 trillion data points annually. That's a lot of data. So you can get a sense of the scalability that needs to be there for something like this to scale across, different verticals, different customers. So all that data comes in at very high fidelity into Samsara, and then we make that available to our partners like Esri, who can pull in relevant information like vehicle location, maintenance data, and others. In terms of what Samsara does, or how does the Samsara equation look like, start to end, I think this slide does a great job. You can see at the bottom, there's industrial equipment of things. I say things broadly because it could be a vehicle, it could be a sweeper, it could be a snowplow, it could be a bin, a recycle bin. And cities and municipalities and customers are looking to get intelligence from these things. And we have sensors, we innovated, everything is innovated in-house, so we don't really rely on third parties. Soup to nuts, the whole offering is designed, developed, innovated by Samsara. So we bring all this data from the field, bring it into our cloud, and then we categorize that data into different solutions, and we make that available to customers through a web interface and mobile apps. I'll touch on the sensors more so because sensors are essentially the data enablers. So all the hardware that Samsara offers today, it's all within a software SaaS license. So we don't sell hardware. We're not a hardware company. We are a connected operations cloud solutions company. So everything is license-based, and the hardware is sort of part of that equation. But you can see the flow or the variety of hardware that you have. You can install it on a forklift. You can install it on a school bus. You can install it on a street sweeper, and bring all that data into one single system, and then pass it on to something like Esri, where you could create your own dashboards, and you can apply a more so unique flavor to that data that you're already collecting through Samsara. In terms of how this whole Samsara plus Esri joint story looks like, I mentioned this at the beginning of the call. You guys are familiar with the GIS. You guys use Esri today to design your custom dashboards. We are a data feed. You already might have vehicles equipped with Samsara, either the vehicle gateway and the dash cam, and you're already generating a lot of data. Samsara, in this case, in this partnership, is bringing that high fidelity data in real time to Esri to power the digital twin. And the outcome is, if you're someone like City of Syracuse or City of Memphis, or in general, if you want a real-time view about all of your operations within your GIS purview, this integration makes that happen. And the connector that we have that bridges the two worlds together, it's a plug-and-play, ready-to-use connector. And you'll see the documentation on Esri's website as well as Samsara's website. But the net message here is If you're using Samsara, if you're using Esri, you have a new dimension that you have access to. Perhaps you haven't explored it, but it's there. And that new dimension will give you not only the GIS visibility, but also an overlay of all of your Samsara data points within the same pane of glass. With that, I will jump into the demo, a hands-on demo. So I'll show some tabs and how the real-world data looks like. So here's an example of one of our customers, Fraley and Schilling. Again, all of this is real data. It's not demo or sandbox data, and we have the authorization from the customer to share this information as part of the demo. But when customers buy Samsara, when they get the Samsara solution, they get a pane of glass where all that data that we collect from the field is brought in. They get to see all the assets in real time on the map with weather and other overlays. And these assets could be anything. Like, it doesn't have to be one specific type. The diversity of assets, we have seen snowplows, street sweepers, we have seen forklifts. All of that is available within this list. But I'm just going to randomly click on one vehicle that is moving. Let's just pick this guy. So here, I want to show you like the real-time nature of the platform. So this is real time. This vehicle is right now driving on Highway 87, and we can see in real time what the driver is seeing. So this is a combination of not only the sensors that are connected to the heart of the vehicle, but it's also the eyes on the road that is bringing all that information in real time. But it doesn't stop there. We can also pull out real-time information from this vehicle in terms of how many miles this vehicle has been running, like what is the fuel level, what is the DEF level. So these are, I would say, fine bits of data that are available in real time. And right now, through a part of this whole Esri and Samsara integration, we have made available the AVL data in real time through that connector. But we're also working on bringing media data and other bits of data, so gradually enrich your dashboards on the GIS platform. And another cool thing I wanted to show, since we are on this screen, we also have embedded AI. So essentially, all the data that we collect on Samsara, you can think of that data having an LLM of its own that is purely using the context of your account. So now in this case, if I were to ask, I have a lot of assets in this account, like who are the top 10 safest drivers in my fleet? Probably a year ago, this operation could have taken anyone maybe a few hours, maybe half of their day, to go through all the data, analyze who are the top drivers, and pull up a report showing, hey, these are the top 10 safest drivers in my account. But in this case, I can simply approach my chatbot. I can fire a question, and looks like it has a lot of data that it has to crunch. But it is showing you a progress of how it is going about that data query. And then it'll not only sort of fetch that data, but it'll arrange it, contextualize it, and format it in a format that is easy to understand. And while it's doing that, it is showing you step by step, like what am I doing as a next action? And here, I have a rich report that I can readily consume without having to go through a slew of reports on my side. So this is just an example of how Samsara is leveraging AI and how we are bringing that AI capability to our customers in the context of the world of operations. Another cool thing, I'm sure you've seen the Samsara cameras. Probably some of you already are using the Samsara cameras in your vehicles. One of the things that I wanted to highlight is, there are many camera vendors out there. There are many safety solutions out there. And here's an example where, an average safety solution might have flagged this as a hazardous or safety event that needs to be addressed. But we slightly differ because our AI is so, I would say, tuned or so advanced that not only we are able to capture this event, but we're able to give some context, like this is a good event. This is not a bad event. Like there was a cruiser, the guy did the right thing. And this goes to show that we reinforce good behavior and we give you the tools, and you as customers, your safety managers, will have ample tools and information to reinforce good behavior and to reward the drivers and give them credit where credit is due. So here's sort of just one example of how we flag the red herrings within the bunch. Another cool example is 360 visibility, and this applies to, I would say, in waste management, public transit, you name it. Customers want to know what's happening around. Like they want the drivers to be alert if there's a pedestrian crossing, or if there's a collision that might happen. So in this case, you can see how we're bringing all this surround vision in real time into the cloud. And if y'all are not familiar with the Samsara safety product, I won't go into a deep dive, but it's real time. We have algorithms on the edge on these cameras and gateways that will qualify a harsh event and will bring the relevant data. And by relevant data, I mean the video footage, the location, the sensor data, what was the brake status, etc., and bring that in real time. And this will help you not only monitor your operations, have eyes on the road, but also help you exonerate your drivers if there's an accident or something similar that you need to act on. Moving forward, just as part of safety, we also give you like a more in-depth visibility into the whole safety situation in your account. But here's an example of one driver in one of our customer accounts. And I can see right off the bat whether this driver is a good driver, needs improvement, needs coaching, where is he doing good, where he is not doing so much good. And I can bring all that information in real time based on his driving behavior. So every acceleration, every harsh turn, every rolling stop, that sort of gets factored into the score. And we give this information, we provide you this information in real time. Coaching is a big one. So we talked about how we detect safety events, but there's also, well, what happens after you detect safety events? How do you coach these drivers? And coaching is a different category in its own, because number one, you need to be able to coach them regardless of wherever they are. You need to be able to track the coaching progress, and you need to be able to do that, all within a few clicks. So I'm just going to pick up one random example here, and I'm going to show you how we are leveraging AI. So this is sort of an AI-generated video that can be pushed to a driver in real time and can train the driver on what they did good and what they need to improve on. And if I push this to the driver will get that on his app. And that is sort of the power of AI. You don't really have to call up the driver, have them in a central office to train, which is the beauty of the solution. I think that sort of gives you a good idea of how Samsara is leveraging AI, not only the chat option, but also we are providing AI avatars and coaching sessions to customers. And now you might say, okay, well, this is fantastic, but I still, as a program manager, I want to know, how is this whole safety program panning out for me? So we do provide you that visibility as well, and a high-level bird's-eye view of how your safety program is doing overall. So how many detections, how many were in cab, were there any nudges, and how is the coaching looking like? So at a glance, if let's say a safety manager or even a mayor or an authority or a leader will ask, okay, how is the safety situation with this county or with the city? Boom, you have all that information readily available. And if you want to drill down deeper, you could always do that. Besides safety, so we talked about real-time location, we talked about real-time safety. Let's talk about maintenance. Now, you have these vehicles out in the field, and you want to make sure that they're always, then there's never a downtime. So you want to make sure they're always in the operations phase, in the operations status. They're always doing the job versus not sitting idle in a yard to be fixed. So because we are connected to the computer, or the heartbeat of the vehicle, we are able to capture in real time what are the fault codes happening on any random vehicle. So in this case, I can see this specific vehicle has a lot of faults, right? And for me, as a maintenance manager or someone who's managing the fleet, I want to be on top of this. And for example, let's say if I'm a noob, I really don't know what this error is about. I can click on this and the AI will give me like a layman, easy to understand path to success on what the issue is, what are the risks if I keep ignoring this issue, and what are the actions I need to take. And obviously, you can go in deeper and interrogate and have an interactive discussion with the AI if you need to help you alleviate this concern. So having this visibility in real time, what does this mean to US customers? Well, you have real-time visibility into what the vehicle is doing, what is the health of the vehicle, and more importantly, you're reducing downtime because preventative maintenance, beats everything. You don't have to stay in the reactive phase. Likewise, as we capture the diagnostics information from the vehicle, we're also bringing in fuel data. So because we're connected to the heart of the vehicle, we're able to get information like, okay, how many miles this guy has driven, what is the fuel efficiency, and we're crunching all those numbers, and we're giving you specifics like what was the idling for a specific vehicle. Not only how long that vehicle was idling, perhaps sitting at a stop sign, or perhaps just sitting there in a lot, idling with the engine on, consuming gas, and how much did it cost you? So these metrics can then go into your cost analyses, like how much are you spending as a city? How can you reduce that spend? How can you reduce the idling time? How can you train these drivers to be more efficient? So all those figures, all those analyses is what we generate based on all that data that we collect from the field. Now, we talked a lot about vehicles, but I know in real life, you guys have assets that are besides just vehicles. You might have toolkits. You might have costly equipment that is being hauled in a vehicle, and you all want visibility into that. So we have these asset tags, like small tracker solutions. Again, the same pane of glass, and you can see the location of that specific asset. So if it's a costly asset, instead of going through loss prevention and where it is or who took it when that asset was lost, you can simply have that asset tag installed on that asset or whatever equipment you're using. And you can in real time get to see, well, what is the last location? What is the breadcrumb trail? And all this information can be ported over to ArcGIS and sort of have it as an overlay, because we are not a GIS platform, right? We are simply a connected operations platform. But this level of data, while you're accessing on the Samsara cloud, you have the ability to bring that over to the ArcGIS platform, and you can create your own custom dashboards and so on and so forth. With that, I want to show you some specific examples of how we come into play when you talk about street sweeping, when you talk about snowplow, when you talk about equipment that is on the road, and during specific seasons. So one of the things that we do is, because we are tracking the pulse of the vehicle, we are able to give you specifics into what is the utilization looking like for any specific vehicle. So this is an example. Not only are we showing the real-time diagnostics and the last known location of this vehicle, but we're also showing within the last 30 days, how was the utilization for this vehicle, right? And this is all based on the real-time data that we capture and that we can make available. And this dashboard doesn't have a seasonal theme. So you can, regardless of the season, 365 days of the year, this dashboard is live, it's active. So whether you're running a snowplow operation for 6 months or a street sweeping operation for the whole year, this is the constant. You can track all those assets. Obviously, snowplow, in some cases, the season might be over. Like in this case, this specific snowplow in the Denver area is not being used as extensively. But when it was in use, we could show what is the spreader rate, like how much of material was spread, where it was, which route. And all this information can, again, be ported as an overlay into the GIS dashboard. Another example I wanted to show you is, how a boom truck, and this is probably one of the unique ones. I'm not sure if everyone here would resonate with this example. But again, on a boom truck, if you have active faults, that can be a cause for concern. So here we are flagging in real time what are some of the faults, and the maintenance person or whoever is in charge of this vehicle can readily act on it and use the AI capabilities, if they need to. With that, I would like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity, and I would like to welcome other panelists, and we can jump right into the Q&A. Thank you all.
While we're waiting for the other panelists to arrive, I'm going to pop a poll up on your screen. This is asking you, give us an idea of your current state of real-time visibility between your fleet ops and field ops and your GIS environment. So we'll let that run for a few minutes, and then you guys can let me know when you'd like to see the results of it.
Super. Thank you, Yatin. Thank you, Gustavo. Appreciate that. I know we have some questions in the chat that are coming in, but I'll use the moderator's prerogative. I have a couple of questions and comments. So my career, I've been working on applying technology to transportation to make it safer and more efficient. And here we have two industry leaders, some titans, Esri and Samsara that, have robust solutions. So was really delighted to see what you guys are working on. Especially Gustavo, the request from the customers, right? Come sweep my street, come plow my street. Are agencies seeing complaints come down by offering this kind of interaction with the public?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is a piece of the solution that many organizations use. We don't hear a lot about it because it's something that it's internal for them, right? But that's a piece that it's in almost all the solutions that we have. There's always a component to kind of receive some type of comment from the public. So it's probably something that's often requested by those industries, right? To have that collaboration with people outside the organization too. And just emphasizing too, that can be used by internal staff, right? If they're driving, they need a way to report things back, they can also use that piece.
Very interesting, very interesting. And Yatin, I was happy to see a lot of the safety applications. You showed the drivers and their performance. I assume, they're professional drivers, so they know they're being observed and have signed on to that.
That's right. So we run a thorough program on educating the drivers on the benefits of the technology, how we can exonerate drivers, because oftentimes these drivers are not at fault, right? They're just doing their job. But we help them with tools that can help them exonerate and keep their story clean. And the drivers truly appreciate it. And we have dealt with unions as well, where privacy often comes up as a concern. It's more so an education session and teaching them or making them part of the pilot early. And they're like, wow, I can get to train myself from anywhere on the road. This is fantastic. So it's all part of the system, right? There's a lot of pros that we bring to the driver as a user, as an asset to that company or that municipality. And we bring all those bells and whistles within the same solution.
Very cool, very cool. And Gustavo, I know Samsara has a bunch of sensors that you have an integration with Esri, but I know there's other sensors out there. You mentioned, there's a plethora of sensors. So if an agency maybe had a flood sensor or something like that, and they want to integrate that into Esri, what's the process? Do you want them to talk to you early or late in the process or throughout? What would you prefer?
Yeah, we're happy to talk as soon as someone has an idea for a project like this. Again, ArcGIS Velocity is the real-time engine, right? So it can connect to a variety of sensors like you mentioned. I didn't mention before, and Samsara kind of touched that a little bit here, but those can be things that are moving. It can be static things that are reporting some attribute that's moving, or it can be something like a vehicle, right? That's moving and some things change the speed, the direction. So there are a number of sensors out there. Yeah, reach out to your account team, and I'm sure they'll be happy to talk to you as early as you have an idea for something.
Of course. And my final question, Yatin, you mentioned you can actually look at the vehicles and recommend maintenance or reducing idling to reduce costs, things of that. How do you report that to the agency? Is it a daily report, weekly, monthly, annual, or all of the above?
All the above and more. So the reports that's one of the things about AI, right? The data is there. Which shape you want the report to be, you can decide whether you want it hourly, weekly, daily. But then there's also notifications and alerts. So if, let's say, you configure an alert for a maintenance event, and you can define that alert, the perimeter of that alert or the specifics of the alert. And we will in real time send you a notification via email, via SMS, like, hey, this is happening. So in terms of visibility, you're not just limited to logging into a platform, but you also have that notification coming in based on an event maturing.
Mm-hmm. Is this a good time? Would you like to see the poll results?
Yep, love to. Yeah.
And folks, please put your questions into the Q&A. So it looks like, wow, some folks don't connect at all. That's the second most, but partially integrated, some data delayed or siloed. I think that's not surprising. You know, mostly manual. That, you know, I was going to ask, you know, what's the process then if there are manual processes? How do we automate those? How do they talk to maybe Gustavo? Do you want to start? If I have a manual process in my agency, how do I work with Esri to automate that? Oh, you might be on mute, Gustavo. Uh-oh.
I think
maybe Yatin, you want to start with that?
Yeah. So I think from my point of view, you know, this makes sense, absolute sense. We still see a lot of municipalities and cities dealing with manual spreadsheets and so on. And that's exactly why we are here. We want industries, municipalities, cities to adapt new technology. And in today's day and age of AI, we are doing everything we can to bring that innovation to these entities. So yeah, if you're not a Samsara customer, I would highly encourage you to talk to us. You know, help us connect with what's the main problem that you're dealing with, and we'd be more than happy to navigate. But if you are a Samsara customer, just use the platform to its full extent. You don't have to deal with manual processes and data silos. One of the cool things about this integration specifically is it's real-time data transfer from Samsara to Esri. So if you zoom out a bit, real-time data comes in from a snowplow into Samsara, and that in real time is going over to Esri. So if you have a GIS platform and if you have the integration turned on, you can get to see the best of both worlds.
Gustavo, you want to add to that?
Can you repeat the question, please? I'm sorry, my screen was kind of black and flashing here. So yeah.
In the poll, there's still a bunch of people that are doing manual processes. So how, if an agency has a manual process, how should they talk to you all to automate that process? What kind of help can you give them?
Yeah, I think, you know, knowing, like you mentioned, the sensor and the workflow, right, that will help us see exactly what type of product would be better to support that. You know, if it's something, it's a real time, is it near real time? It's something that, you know, doesn't have to be updated that frequently. But again, if you have a Esri team to support you, maybe reach out to them and we can kind of find the best solution, right? But there are a number of different options in the ArcGIS ecosystem.
I'm sure. So we do have some questions from the audience. Does Samsara work with third-party dash cams? And if yes, is there a list of compatible hardware?
Oh, yes. So the answer, I was just hyping it. Sorry, just doing multitasking, and I'll send that response now. So yes, we are compatible on the 360 visibility side. We have a knowledge base article I pasted in that answer. Feel free to refer to that. The Samsara dash cam, that's a core component of the safety solution. That's where we have invested a lot of AI and innovation on that camera on the edge. But if, let's say, classic example is K-12 school buses. They already might have, let's say, third-party cameras installed. We can bring that feed into the whole AI box, and we can make those cameras smarter using the Samsara multi-cam solution installed in the bus.
Yeah. I mean, from your slide, the investments that you guys are making in technology and research and algorithms and AI and the number of patents, you know, it's just amazing. So keep up the great work. Another question, how seamless is the integration between Samsara and ArcGIS Velocity? Does it require any custom API calls for relevant data, or is there a plug-and-plug solution?
So it's a plug-and-play solution. It's not bespoke or custom. It's a turnkey plug-and-play. You can find the instructions on the Esri website as well as Samsara. You will need to have an account or contract with Samsara and Esri. And as long as you have that, it's 1, 2, 3. So you simply have to go through these steps to enable the Samsara connector and off to the races.
Yeah. And another question has come in. So who would be the contact for partnering at Samsara?
That's a good question. We do have, if you go to the Samsara API website, you can just type in Samsara API on Google. And there's a button, become a partner. You can approach it that way. So we'll receive an intake form. But if, let's say, you're not able to do that, then we have partnerships at samsara.com, which is another email alias. Or if not, just reach out to me.
Super, super. Well, I don't see any other. Oh, here comes another question. Where does the data reside and what type of purge or disposal policies are defined and who decides them? When you say Esri receives the data, is that a duplication? Does Samsara just pass through the data? Are rights retained to the data for AI training?
Wow, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
So I'll try my best to keep it as short as possible. So the data resides on the Samsara platform. And maybe I'll take a step back. What is the definition of the data from a legal point of view? So the customers are the owners of the data. Samsara is simply a custodian. So we are a custodian. The customer owns that data, anything that is generated within the Samsara as source of truth. Now, when the customer is sending that data from Samsara to Esri, the customer has to approve. And when the customer is enabling that data connector between the two systems, there is a disclaimer where we ask the customer explicitly, are you approving this? And that will then have like a data sharing addendum as part of it. And once the customer approves, that is when the data feed goes live. And no, it is not duplication. It is essentially Samsara as the source of truth data feed that lights up certain widgets and graphs on the Esri side. So it's not like duplicate. It's essentially Samsara underpinning the Esri GIS solution.
Yeah, on the Esri side, we have different deployment options, right? I mentioned ArcGIS Online as a SaaS or ArcGIS Enterprise as something that you deploy and maintain. So there are different options there in terms of just more generally like where the data lives and who owns it. With Samsara and Velocity, when you create that connection, the thing that you're getting there from that feed is a feed, right? So it's just kind of the real-time data. When you're creating that connection, there is an option to, also collect the historical information. And it's important to kind of know too that you're not getting all the data from Samsara, right? You're getting the data, that you need to kind of deploy the solution. But you can also keep the historical information so that when I went to that historic tab there, right, that's looking at all the data that came, it's stored in a feature service. And the feed is reporting the real time, but there's also a kind of historic component that you can save in your GIS if you want. But again, not everything that Yatin showed here, more just what's coming in that feed.
Cool, thank you. And another question from an ArcGIS customer that uses Verizon. Is that a partner of Samsara? Can they connect through Verizon? I don't know how you guys all work, but
yeah, that'll be more so a redundant solution, but it's either or. If you're interested in trialing out Samsara, learning more about us, I highly encourage you to reach out. And if you already have reached out and haven't received anything, David, I'll be happy to sort of take the details from the organizers here and have one of our sales representatives reach out to you.
Super, super. Wow. So I was very impressed by both the solutions. It's kind of, I started in, working in transportation technology last century. So the things we were talking about then have come to fruition, and the tools that are available are so powerful for agencies, small and large. It's just amazing, the work that you guys are doing. So thank you for your participation, your presentations, your demonstrations, and thank you, audience, for the questions. I appreciate it. And any last thoughts? Any last comments? Gustavo, do you have any?
I just thought about something in one of the questions here in terms of AI. You know, we don't use your data to train anything in GIS, right? So that's an important distinction there. Regardless of where your data is stored, you know, we train our models using other data sets. Your data remains just your data. Other than that, yeah, I think a lot of the questions, you know, require additional discussions or, you know, even if you are hearing this for the first time, there are a lot of different ways to set up this thing. So again, if you have a Esri team that supports your organization, if you don't know who that is, maybe talk to someone that, you know, is in GIS or IT. Connect with those people because they understand your organization already. If you are new to all this and you don't have the Esri team support you, feel free to reach out to me too, and I can try to connect with someone here.
Yatin, we'll let you have the last
Yeah.
word.
Just one final and an interesting observation at one of the Esri partnership events when I was there is that we have a lot of customers, mutual customers, who are using Samsara or using Esri, but are just not aware of that bridge exists, right? So if you're curious, reach out to your Samsara representative or your Esri representative and connect those gaps, because the Esri reps are usually on the IT side, IT procurement side, and the Samsara points of contact are mostly on the operations side. So you might have an IT buyer on the operation and an operations buyer dealing with individual entities. So at the municipality or the city, if you're interested, get those 2 points of contact connected and let the magic happen.
Yeah, it's always about cutting across silos, huh?
Yeah.
Both data and operations and internally. Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, appreciate your hard work here and on your company's behalf and your behalf. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time, everybody. Appreciate you attending.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.